IL2 Sturmovik Great Battes is a classic World War II flight simulator. There are tons of reasons why I think it's the best and easiest way to get into warbirds and very early jets. Here are the top 3. Number 1. It's been released in 2013, so its hardware requirements are quite low, even in VR. Number 2. The difficulty level is highly adjustable. You can tune down the sim to feel almost arcadey, so expensive hardware isn't mandatory. And number 3. There's lots of single-player missions, scenarios, and a campaign mode you can dump hundreds of hours into. IL2 also has a very active multiplayer community. Generally, it's a great way to learn how to fly old-school World War II prop planes from all major factions. The included tutorials are very basic though, and consist only of text telling you what to do. Luckily, there's tons of helpful stuff about every plane here on YouTube. But let's get the basics down first. What do you need to buy to get started? The IL2 series consists of several installations, namely Battle of Stalingrad, Battle of Moscow, Battle of Kuban, Battle of Bodenplatte, and Battle of Normandy. Battle of Stalingrad focuses on the Stalingrad theater and comes with the Stalingrad map and campaign. The included planes are Soviet and German types, like the IL2 Sturmovik ground attack plane, the Bf-109F4, the Stuka and the Yak-1. You also get the Heinkel He-111 and the Pe-287 bombers. Battle of Moscow adds the Moscow map and the campaign. The most notable added planes are the I-16, the MiG-3, the Bf-110 and the Ju-88 bomber. Battle of Kuban adds the Kuban map and the according campaign, and also the Sea Dragons historical campaign. There are some US and British planes now, like the P-39, the premium Spitfire Mark 5B and the A-20B bomber. And we finally can fly a Focke-Wulf 190, in this case the A5 version. Battle of Bodenplatte adds the large Western Europe map, which includes parts of Belgium, the Netherlands and Germany. And some notable warbirds like the P-47D, the P-51D and the Me-262. And finally, there's Battle of Normandy. It introduces the Normandy battle area, which consists of parts of southern England and the Normandy and Calais region. The most important planes in this pack are the Spitfire Mark 9C, the Typhoon, the Mosquito FB Mark 6 and the Me-410. The decision which one to get is yours to make. See which planes and scenarios you like the most and buy the corresponding package. The earlier parts of the series are on sale quite often for about 10 to 20 euros. My suggestion would be start with Battle of Stalingrad. It offers a well-rounded selection of planes you can fly throughout the early, middle and late stages of the war. Premium planes are included in the premium packages but are sold separately also. And they sometimes go on sale as well. For the following tutorial, you don't need the premium edition because I have a certain plane for you to start with in mind. For good reasons, you'll see. To support the developers, you could also decide to buy everything you want directly from 1C's own store, so they get every cent you invest without paying the Steam tax. There are no drawbacks here, versions are the same on both platforms. Now, let's briefly talk about gear. As I already mentioned, you don't need expensive hardware to start playing IL2. The same counts for input devices. As a beginner, an Xbox controller or similar, together with your keyboard is totally fine. To make things easier, you could also use simplified physics and you're good to go. I've got a possible key binding scheme in the description below, make sure to check it out and save yourself a ton of time. You could also get a free tool called Joystick Gremlin, which for example lets you create simulated analog inputs from buttons. That's especially useful if you just got a gamepad. If you want to invest a little money for a better flight experience, get a cheap Logitech Extreme 3D Pro. Occasionally, refurbished flight sticks of this type change hands for as cheap as 20 bucks. It has twist and a throttle lever, that's all you need to get started. The last option I'd recommend for beginners would be the Winwing Ursa Minor. It sits just above 100 euro, has a sturdy gimbal construction and is able to support your ambitions on the longer run. For a more thorough overview of the available options, watch my HOTAS overview. I'll upload an updated version each November. Now, let's take a look at the main menu. Quickstart throws you into the Quick Mission Builder. Just select a scenario there and configure it to your liking. It's self-explaining. Career mode lets you start a pilot career. You can select your theater, like Stalingrad or Normandy, and then the side you want to fly on. Filter for your preferred plane on the left and select a starting phase and date. You can then select a unit to join on the right. The next step lets you configure your pilot. Sadly, you can't add your own portrait. With this drop down here, you may adjust whether you want to be in command of the unit or not. Iron Man means you can't restart a mission, so if you're dead or captured, you have to live with the consequences. Or not. A brief intro sequence plays, then once the career starts, you find the current date on the top left and a couple of menu items on the right. Pilot lets you check your own statistics. Unit HQ shows you the other pilots and the available equipment. There's nothing to do in the planning room at the moment, since we're not in command or we just arrived. Headquarters lets you assess the current situation on the map, and World News supplies you with the latest newspaper. Once you click on Next Day, a day passes and an overview of everything that has changed is displayed, like arriving reinforcements or events at the front line. If you're in command, there will be pending missions in the planning room. Assign pilots and planes as you see fit. You're also able to modify each plane's loadout here. If you're not in command, you will get an assignment from the squadron's commander. Then you proceed to fly the mission. The Campaigns menu item contains the scripted campaigns that came with the pack you've bought or the ones you purchased separately. Behind Missions, hide all the scenarios you currently own. They include stuff like takeoff and landing training, interception, and escort missions. The rest explains itself, I guess. Now, let's take a quick look at the settings. I'll explain the most important ones. Under Game, you can select your preferred measurement units. Map scenery distance means how much of the map is loaded once you fly a mission. Lowering it might improve performance on low-spec systems. This item has nothing to do with the actual draw distance of distant buildings, landscape, and other details. Flight interface allows you to configure the HUD. Nothing special here. I suggest to leave in-game messages at technical and tips for now. The game then tells you if your engine overheats or that you forgot to retract your gear. Wish we had a Heinz mod for that.
Dein Fahrwerk, du Hammel!
Key mapping is where you bind all your input devices. More on that later in the specific plane tutorials. Next up is graphics. Mine is configured for 90 FPS in VR here. I run a 3090, a 5800X 3D and a Reverb G2. If you don't have a beefy GPU, mirrors and shadow quality have a lot of impact on performance. Also be careful with the clouds and horizon draw distance. They also notably impact performance. Let's also have a look at the camera settings. Limit VR view means you can't just move your head through the canopy of a plane once it's closed. You can also adjust the camera adjustment speed here. That's especially useful if you've bound it to an axis or buttons and you're not running a head tracker, like the TrackHat, TrackIR, or Toby. Alright, before you play a pilot career or the scripted campaigns, some are well made and especially the newer ones come with nice voiceovers, you need to know how these old but charming planes work in general. Let me explain it to you using the example of the notorious Messerschmitt Bf 109 F4. What you can see here are its elevators. They make the plane go up and down. Between them sits the rudder. It primarily keeps the plane directionally stable or assists in turning. These things here are ailerons. They are used to roll the plane. And what you can see here are flaps. If you deploy them, they slow down the plane and increase lift. That's important for landings and sometimes takeoff. Most planes also have trim tabs or stabilizers. They are used to balance out the plane and, for example, help to keep it from pitching up or down during cruise at a fixed speed. In contrast to the other control surfaces, like the rudder or elevators, they can be fixated in a certain position and don't return to center automatically. So you need to bind 3 analog axes: pitch up and down, roll left and right, and yaw left and right. Trim can be bound to buttons or a head, since you only need to adjust it from time to time. Now let's check the engine. Old planes usually require a ton of engine management, like adjusting oil and water coolers, taking care of prop pitch, regulating manifold pressure, and so on. Here's the good news. The BF109 F4 does all of that for you.
German engineering in the house.
Other planes need specific controls bound here, like the oil and water radiator controls and supercharger gears. As you have guessed already, that's the plane I would recommend to you to learn first. It's included in Battle of Stalingrad, which is on sale quite often. Yes, the 109 is a pain in the ass to taxi around on the ground, but once it's in the air, it allows you to concentrate on flying instead of requiring constant engine and prop pitch management. On top of that, it's one of the best fighter aircraft of the whole era in my opinion. Watch my How to 109 guide to quickly learn how to tame this brindled beast. It includes the required key bindings, which realism settings to use, how to taxi, take off and land again, and other important tips. So, thanks for stopping by and see you there in a second.